Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Outside the Box video. Well, I haven't done one of these in a while, only because I haven't come across an article that I felt is perfect to share within this series. Just a brief preview as to what this particular channel is for those of you that are new to my YouTube channel. Outside the Box is pretty much anything and everything that falls outside of all the other topics that I've talked about. So anything involving ghosts and spirits, cryptids and monsters, mafia and gangsters, urban legends, all that kind of stuff. If it falls outside of those categories and there's really nothing else that I can fit it into, then that's where I put it into here. And so this is almost like a special edition set of videos that I make for Outside the Box because it's stuff that I really enjoy, but I just happen to have it placed here because it's the only place to put it into. And so I haven't touched this in a while because of that fact, but I did come across this article that was featured there on my Google News app, and I thought I would definitely share it with everyone here. This is because even though I'm not a current Simpsons fan, I still was an early Simpsons fan, and I'm sure there are plenty of Simpsons fans out there, and this article has to do with this. It is the top 3 fan-favorited celebrity guests. Yes, within all of their seasons, all of their episodes, these are apparently the top 3 most voted celebrity guests by fans. And so I thought this was a great way to share with everyone here, and then that way we can see together who's in the top 3 and how right or how wrong they are. And then also I'll include my own honorable mentions because, again, I have been a fan at least through the early years, and so I've seen plenty of celebrity guests on there that made an impact. And then plus I'll give my thoughts as to how the celebrities have both helped and hurt the Simpsons seasons all along. So let's go ahead and let's talk about that particular article here and then share the top 3 most fan-favorited celebrity guests. Now first, I wanted to mention about the celebrities themselves and how they've helped or how they've hurt the seasons. So I think early on, especially like the early seasons, maybe up to season 8 or so, the celebrities were there, but they were more as wonderful add-ons. Like they were there to complement the story instead of being the actual story itself. There may have been a few exceptions here or there, but the whole point was like it was a Simpsons story, it was a Simpsons episode, and then there was a celebrity that happened to be coming on to the show to help out with something along the lines of the story, and it worked really well with some of those very memorable episodes. I'll talk about that more here in a minute, but things turned though was I felt later on it seemed like the celebrities almost took over the entire seasons, like the entire episodes themselves. It's kind of a situation where you can't really fault them for doing so. I mean, the seasons got to market themselves. The ads have to sell themselves too when it comes to showcasing who's going to be on the next Simpsons episode. And so having a big name like the Rolling Stones or somebody else from, let's say, the music or Hollywood world will definitely get that up front. Plus, I think it's more on the lines of a little bit of ego and then marketing tied into it as well. If your celebrity is going to come on and they're going to do it for that particular time period, they want to make sure that they get the most out of it. And so why not make an entire episode surrounding the celebrity themselves? That's where I think, though, it hurt things afterward, because I think that the quality of the storylines definitely went down, because how much can you talk about a certain celebrity within an entire episode without things getting poorer after the fact? So in the early episodes, I think it worked well. In the later episodes, I don't think so. But again, that's just my opinion. And then that's why I think the quality of the show has definitely gone down as the seasons went on. I'm hoping that I'm wrong on that part, but please let me know in your comments if you feel the same way as well. Now, as far as the episodes and the top 3, apparently this was from an article there in Metro. This was a UK website, metro.co.uk, and in it they decided to post out of like 800 plus episodes featuring celebrities. Can you believe that? Over 800 episodes. They decided to narrow it down to what they considered were the most popular celebrity guests, and you'll see that list here. And that's not even all of it. And then they were able to ask fans to go ahead and post and click what they thought were their favorite ones. And so out of all the ones that you see here, that's where essentially it was narrowed down to the top three. And I'll go ahead and I'll go in descending order. So 3, 2, and 1. And then right after that, I'll include my own honorable mentions. And then that way you'll be able to see what my favorite listings were. Now, number 3 is this gentleman right here. He is, of course, someone that everyone knows, a huge fan favorite. I'm surprised he's number 3. In fact, I thought he should have been number 1 because he was definitely in one of my favorite episodes ever, the one involving the monorail. And that is, of course, the celebrity guest of Leonard Nimoy. He was someone that was there, of course, from the Star Trek world, but he was there always to make fun of him. Like, he had no problem making fun of himself within that episode, and I think he was featured in one more as well afterward. But yes, he was in that very much beloved episode, showcasing his wit, showcasing his sarcasm, and then being able to just end things off on a bright note when it comes to him beaming away from that monorail afterward, doing it with a sleight of hand, as far as him apparently not doing anything but calling that to the fact that didn't he do anything? And then that's where it left it at that. And so this was an episode that I really, really loved. It's heralded to this day, so much so in fact that it's been featured in other forms. Like, if you go right now to the actual slot machines and you find the Simpsons slot machine, you'll see that episode featured as a bonus. And I think that's one of the few episodes, if any, that happens to be showcased as a bonus level. So even after all these years, his cameo within that episode is still much beloved, and I wholeheartedly agree. I think, again, it should have been number 1. I'm surprised that the fans voted it as number 3. The only consolation is the fact that there's a small margin of percentages when it comes to the top 3. So in this case, he landed number 3 with 11% of the votes. Now, number 2 is another one that I saw in one of the earlier years. I think it was like season 8 or something like that. Forgive me if some of these seasons are wrong. There's too many to name with regards to it. But it has to do with this. It's Mark Hamill. There is that episode where he was featured in it, and then he was playing, of course, himself as Luke Skywalker, as a person that was coming on board a fan convention, and he used that opportunity to then sell Sprint to the fans, and then of course they started to get riled up, and then that's when they decided to take on a mob mentality and fight each other, and Homer ends up saving him afterward. But he was also someone that was, just like Leonard Nimoy, very happy to make fun of himself, use sarcasm within it too, and it was just really, really great. So I do see it as being in the top part. I don't know necessarily in the top 2%, or in the top 3 in this case, gaining 12% of the vote, but still having him on board, I definitely see it within having the top listing. And I don't know if he was featured in any other episode afterwards. Someone might have to help me out. But I clearly remember him on that one too. And I did like that episode because it was a good tongue-in-cheek poke when it came to the fan conventions. And it was so funny to see so many of the regular Simpsons guests, like the Simpsons cast, play out as the nerds that they truly are there at the fan convention. And of course, Mark Hamill being a huge part of it too. So great stuff. Now, if you're wondering what the number 1 was, this was a surprise to me. I had no idea that this was that popular. Who would have known? But it happens to do with this. That's right, the Red Hot Chili Peppers and their guest appearance on an episode happened to be the number 1 spot. They got 16% of the vote, in fact, when it came to that particular top spot. I think they got on it because it happened to be featured within a very heralded episode. This was the episode that's called Krusty Gets Canceled. And it's a very memorable episode because it's basically Krusty's comeback. That's the one where he fades away because of some other situation. I think it was another doll that came on board. And when that happened, his show debunked and it was just going down in ratings, and so it got canceled. But then he made a comeback, and it was with a bunch of celebrities on there. Well, there was a very memorable set of instances involving the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and that's where they got to perform their song Give It Away. And then, of course, Krusty happened to be able to try to show some funny lyrics to replace it with, and then they would visit Moe's Tavern and so on. So I think that's what it had to do with it. The episode was so good and then their particular spot so memorable that that's where I think why it got most of the vote itself. Maybe I could be wrong. Maybe they truly did make even more of an impact themselves, but definitely I think it had to do more with the episode itself. So those are the top 3 when it comes to the fan favorite celebrity guests there on The Simpsons. Number 3 again is Leonard Nimoy. Number 2 is Mark Hamill, and then number 1 are the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Now, as far as my own personal honorable mentions, and these are some of the ones that first came to mind, which in my opinion are the truest, because if you have the first thing that comes to mind, that is truly the one that is the honest, like that is the one that makes most sense. So quickly thinking to myself, who are my favorite celebrity guests that I've seen on The Simpsons? These are the lists that I came up with. There's no particular order when it comes to these 7 names. It's just essentially the ones that just came to mind immediately. There's Stephen Hawkings, who had a very memorable episode where he was almost fighting with Homer when it came to certain situations, and then he was able to fly away in his little mini copter there on the wheelchair. There was Danny DeVito, who was there featured as Homer's long-lost brother. Very memorable episode too, because of the legacy that his character was able to build, the giant fortune that he built out of nothing, and then of course the parallel associated with Homer being compared to him as far as one brother being nothing and the other brother having an entire company that's a multi-million-dollar company. There was that one there. Dustin Hoffman, he was another celebrity, one of the early seasons too. This was the role that he played as a teacher that Lisa fell in love with, and he had to move away right after that towards the end of the episode, and it made it very memorable. There was Meryl Streep, who was one of Bart's early loves. I think she was the daughter of Reverend Lovejoy, and she was turned out to be evil. She turned out to be really bad within the episode, but Bart just couldn't help himself when it came to falling in love with her, and she did a really good job within that episode. There's Mel Gibson, who I really loved in his episode. He was just playing himself, and he was another one that was, again, very happy to be able to just be his sarcastic self, make fun of himself in all the ways possible. I love it when celebrities do that, when they poke fun of themselves so much. It just shows it's very humble whenever they do so. And so in this case, the entire episode was about Homer and him trying to prevent a movie. I think it was prevent a movie from being featured, and in that case, that's where it's just a bunch of calamity ensued. There's Arlie Ermy, who was featured in another episode there from Krusty, not Krusty the Clown, but Sideshow Bob, and in this case, he happened to be, of course, another military person in that episode, and it was really funny to see him just basically play himself from Full Metal Jacket, and so that was good. And then the last one I wanted to mention was Sarah Gilbert, who played another of Bart's loves, and this was one of the early seasons too. This was a very memorable episode to me because we've all had that person that we've fallen in love with, but they just happen to be with someone else, like they choose someone else, and when that occurs, it's almost like a lost love of sorts. And so in this case, Sarah Gilbert definitely played a memorable episode. I think she came back once. Someone point out to me right or wrong if that's the case, but otherwise it was really a great episode on that part too. But that's pretty much it as far as the top 3 celebrity fan voted guests, and then also my honorable mentions. If you have any you wanted to mention below, please post them in the comments. That'd be great to hear what your top 3 lists are, or if you have any more on top of that, that's perfectly fine too. I've always wondered how the celebrities come on board. Like, do they pitch themselves to the Simpsons cast? I mean, to the Simpsons writers, or do the writers themselves come up with something and then ask the celebrities? My understanding is that they also get paid next to nothing when it comes to coming on the episodes. Like, I think they get paid at, I think it's called fair trade or fair value, like where it's basically just voice acting at its lowest when it comes to the pay, but they're doing it, of course, just for the notoriety to be able to be on an actual Simpsons episode. And how cool would that be to be able to have that happen? But yes, otherwise, whatever your mentions are, post them below. All right, everybody, thanks again as always. Take care.